We need to record. Yeah, so Sushila, you want to go?
Good morning. It's early here, 8 o'clock, for in California, Nevada City, and I host living room conversations and also train hosts. So I think it's really important when you're in a model of leadership of any sort, or even in the circle, when you're when you're in a group, that you pay attention to what's going on inside as well as everybody else so that you can stay present. So I'm kind of still learning empathy. Um, but one of these days, if I can fit it in, I have another course coming up in October, November, so I can only do so much. But I want to take the whole empathy course maybe in the winter well, then I'm traveling, so
Yeah,
yes,
we
when
start
the
in
time is
October.
right, Edwin, when the time is right.
When the time is right.
Yeah.
Yeah, with next cohort starts October 24th. It starts on Mondays. Dwayne, want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Dwayne Hearn, and I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. Um, and self empathy is something that I practice regularly. It's something that is always a part of my process before I enter into an empathy circle. And I'm also here to learn more and to grow as a person. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Dwayne. Linda?
Yes, Linda Bass. I apologize. I'm having some video difficulties. I'm still working on it, so I may just go all the way out and come back in. I'm from Texas. I've been involved with the Empathy Circle process for a couple of years. I'm a facilitator. I love it. This idea of self-empathy sparked my curiosity. I'm not sure if I practice it or not, but I want to learn more about it. So I can put a label on what I do to myself. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And Edwin Rutch, live in the San Francisco Bay Area, director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and working on developing a new training. We have our our module 1, which is the Empathy Circle Facilitator training, and I'm now working on the second module 2, which is called Defining Empathy, a Way of Being for a Better World. So I'm going to just I had created a video, sent it out. I don't know if anybody saw the first version of it, but I've updated it. But I'll just give a little bit of an overview of the course, and then self-empathy is one component of it. Let me give everyone's co-host permission. So if you see Linda come back in, you can let her in. You're all co-hosts. So let me do a screen share here of this slideshow. So this is a slideshow that I'm working on. I've gone through 2 versions of this, Defining Empathy, a Way of Being for a Better World. And this is an overview. This is session 1, overview and outline for the 7-week training course. And this is an outline for session 1. So we're going to use the same process as we do in the facilitation training course. You'll have a full group that comes together. We have the breakout rooms, and then we have a full group debrief. And this is an outline of what the first 30 minutes will be like. And it's using kind of a similar framework again as module 1. So we have, our welcome participant check-ins. And, we ask, why are you interested in defining empathy and taking this course? We have the course objectives that we go through the course 7-week outline, so people know what to expect. And then we have the presentation, short presentation. Then we'll be going into breakout rooms. And the course objectives is to develop a deep understanding of the meaning. Oh, there's Priyanka. The meaning is like Priyanka in the meaning of empathy. Learn the empathy as a way of being model definitions. There's a lot of different definitions of empathy out there, and we're going to just be laying out this one definition to kind of explain. It's kind of definition that I've been working on for the past 10, 15 years. Begin to map the definition onto the experience in the empathy circle, so that we take the terms and the words that we're using and actually relate them to what's happening in the empathy circle, so it's not a just an abstract sort of a definition of empathy. Then we're going to reflect on the blocks, what actually blocks empathy, because to define something, if you say, what's not empathy, that can help with the definition. And then compare the way of being definition to other models. So you've probably heard of the affective cognitive empathy, and that's sort of a model of empathy. And so we'll compare a way of being definition initially to that model of cognitive empathy and affective. And the 7-week course is lesson 1 is kind of showing the model, empathy as a way of being model. Lesson 2 is going to be other-oriented empathy, and this is often what we consider empathy is, towards other people. And then that's sort of based on the work of Carl Rogers. And then we have self-empathy, which is what we're kind of exploring here. And Priyanka, who's joined us now, she's been working on, developing the lesson 3. And what we're doing here in this group is sort of a prelude to that, to just start to brainstorm and have an empathy circle on what self-empathy means. And then Priyanka and I and Colin are working on creating a lesson 3. And then we have imaginative empathy, and I had mentioned that role playing that we did with the woman, and that's what I'd call imaginative empathy. It's that you imagine yourself in different roles, and so we'll be exploring that in depth. And then there's lesson 5 is relational empathy. And relational empathy is usually, you'll see that empathy is defined from an individualistic point of view. It's like I, as an individual, empathize with others. But relational empathy is including that, but also like in a dyad, if you're with 2 people, there's a relationship between those 2 people. And what is the relationship what is the level of empathy within that relationship? And again, with the empathy circle, there's a whole group of 4 or 5 people in the empathy circle. So what's the relationship, the level of empathy in that relationship? So that's just a different way of looking at it, or an additional way of looking at it than just the individualistic view of empathy. Then we'll go into the blocks to empathy in lesson 6. And, we'll be actually doing role plays with the blocks. If you've done the facilitation training, the challenges are usually like some type of blocks. And we have a whole website, definingempathy.com, and there's a whole page there of the blocks. And then lesson 7, we're going to go into sort of a deep dive of some of these other models. And so that's the outline, and I'm going to stop there. And we have Priyanka. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, great.
Just getting some tea.
Okay. So yeah, I was just giving a little overview of the training course and how you're working, explaining how you're working on the self-empathy component. So do you want to take it over?
Yeah. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for giving us your time to do this beautiful work. Like Edwin mentioned, I'm developing the self-empathy model, and I've read a lot in the literature, and the problem in the literature is that people often use, like we said, like I told you guys last week, those who were here, that there's a lot of reference to self-compassion, but very little about self-empathy. And we also want to ground this definition in the circle. And that's why I'm doing this circle, these two circles today, last week and this week, to understand what people who participate in the circle think, feel, or whatever is in your mind. And when I say self-empathy, what comes up to you, for you, in the context of the circle, because that's where we want to ultimately ground this definition. And the higher goal of this project is because when we're talking to people about the circle and we want to spread this circle and the culture of empathy, I find that I often come up against this wall where people have one definition of empathy or self-empathy, and I'm proposing this one, and then it becomes this tug of war. So we want to make sure that when we are spreading the circle, that we are on the same page, and that we know what we mean by these terms. Ultimately, they are just terms because empathy is a felt experience. We feel into each other, and we know at a visceral level what it means to us. So it's a hard task to put it into words, but that's what we're trying to do, so that we are on the same page. That's like the ultimate goal, to serve the purpose of spreading the culture of empathy across the globe, which is what I'm sure all of us are passionate about here. So welcome, and we're going to do it in the same way like the circle, and you guys have already participated in the circle, so I won't spend time telling you more about it, but I'll be showing the time, and when your time is up, I'll just show my mobile like this, and I invite anybody who'd like to share first, just whatever comes up for you when you, there are two questions actually. What is let's do the first one first, right, Edwin? So what is your definition of self-empathy? That's the first question, which after the halfway mark, we will do the second question, just like last time. So what is your definition of self-empathy? Anyone who'd like to start us off?
I'll start.
Thanks, Dan.
Sure. So I think of when I think of, excuse me?
Who are you speaking to?
Oh, I thought I was speaking to Priyanka,
Oh,
but
okay,
no.
great. No, yeah.
Oh, no?
You can pick whoever
Yeah,
you want.
whoever
I'll be
you
happy
want,
to
yeah.
listen to you.
Okay, I'll speak to Dwayne then, if Priyanka would prefer not to speak to her. Is that okay, Dwayne?
Of course.
Okay. Okay, so when I think of self-empathy, I think of it as regarding oneself with compassion in an effort to better understand what is motivating one's behavior, and then to address that with expansive amounts of kindness.
Diane, when you think of this idea of self-empathy, you use the word compassion, and to have compassion and excuse me, as it relates to yourself, and then also along with that, a tremendous amount of kindness.
Yeah, and you're trying to, I think when you're trying to understand what is motivating your behavior.
Okay. For you, it means trying to understand what's motivating your behavior.
Right. And I think there's the definition of self-empathy, and then there's how do we actually move ourselves into a place of experiencing or practicing self-empathy.
And you make a distinction between the definition of self-empathy and the process of actually practicing self-empathy, how it applies to you as a person.
Right. Because I think it does require practice, because we're raised in a society of a lot of judgment, and we internalize all that judgment.
And you believe that we live in a society where there's lots of judgments happening all the time, and it's people generally internalize those judgments. And so it's important to practice self-empathy regularly.
Because I think it's like a conceptual shift from maybe the way we've brought up to regard ourselves and regard others.
And again, for you, it's this idea that it takes a conceptual shift in the way that we regard ourselves and the way we regard others.
So my experience with self-empathy comes out of my study of nonviolent communication.
Your experience with self-empathy comes out of your experiences with nonviolent communication.
And in that practice, we hold a concept that all actions are an attempt to meet needs.
In nonviolent communication, you have a concept where that all human action comes about as a result of some human need.
Yeah, it's an attempt to sort of meet a need that's arising. Like I want something to happen. I'm trying to do something to make that happen, either conscious or unconscious.
It's a conscious or unconscious effort to meet a human need. So the action is related directly to meeting a human need that person has.
So if you understand that, even if your actions don't have the result that you had hoped for, or have a result that you're actually upset about, you can bring compassion to yourself with understanding that you were doing the best you could with the information you had, the capacity you had, the skills you had to try to meet a basic need.
And so if you understand that, it's really important to understand that in terms of, as it relates to self, that whatever action the person is taking, they were doing the best they could with what they had to meet a particular need that they had.
Yeah. And does that mean my time is up? Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much, Dwayne. I feel heard and understood.
Oh, thank you, Diane. See, Linda, would you
Sure.
like to listen?
Yes, I'm here for you, Dwayne.
I appreciate the support. It's interesting. I remember answering this question last week. I don't remember what I said last week.
You remember responding to this question last week, but you don't remember your response.
Yes. But for me, I always think of self-empathy in terms of my own self-esteem. And I think that the two things are connected.
So you think self-empathy and self-esteem are two entities that are they're connected?
Yes, because I believe that I view the world that I view everything based on how I feel about myself.
So you view the world, or you based everything as to in relation to how you feel about yourself.
Yes. And so if I feel good about who I am, if I'm learning or loving myself, then the world's a beautiful place and I'm able to see beauty and good in people.
Okay, so if your perspective of yourself is good and you like yourself, then that's how you see the world. It reflects how you feel about yourself.
Yes, and I'm living in a world filled with possibilities, where everything is possible, and
Mhm.
I'm excited about being a part of that world.
So you live in a world of possibilities where everything is possible, and you're excited about the fact that everything is possible.
When I'm not feeling good about myself, um, I believe that my capacity to be self-empathic is not the same. And so when I'm not feeling good, that's not-
So when you're not feeling good about yourself, your ability to be empathic, self-empathic is not good.
the capacity is less.
The capacity is less. So when you're not feeling good about yourself, your capacity for self-empathy is less.
And it's easier to judge people,
Mhm.
to not connect with what they're going through, but to pass judgment on them.
Okay. So it's easier to pass judgment on people rather than connecting with them.
Yes, and so it's really important for me, especially before I enter an empathy circle, where we hold the space, a safe space for people to share, that I'm aware of how I'm feeling and what my needs are.
Okay. So before engaging in our empathy circles, you do a self check-in and see how you're feeling about yourself.
Yes, and it's something that I've learned to do regularly before I enter our space.
And so it's something you've learned to do regularly or automatically before you enter the empathy circle, which is a safe space.
Yes, because I want to make sure that I leave whatever issues or challenges that I'm working through in my own life outside that space before I enter it.
Okay, so you want to make sure that whatever challenges you're experiencing in your own life, prior to entering the empathy circle, you want to make sure you leave that outside and come in ready to, I guess, receive and make sure it's a safe space.
Yes, and it doesn't mean that I might not share something, for example, what's alive for me in the circle. I want to make sure that I do it without the baggage and the projections that usually come with something like that.
Interesting. So it doesn't make you in the empathy circle, you may share those challenges that you're experiencing at that time, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you leave that baggage and judgmental, critical attitude outside.
Yes, and so in summary, for me, self-empathy is about making sure that I'm okay and um, um, opening my heart and my mind to the experiencing or being aware of what someone else is experiencing.
So self-empathy is just checking in with yourself and making sure that you're okay so you can allow other people to share their experiences without being judgmental.
Yes, and I
Great.
understand my time is up, and I'll leave one last word, and that's awareness. Awareness is essential to self.
Awareness is essential. Okay,
Thank
great,
you, Linda. I feel fully heard.
great. I'm going to ask, I can't see her name. Sorry, Shaletta. Did I say that correctly?
Sue Sheila.
Sue Sheila. I could see it. I just couldn't pronounce it.
She's-
Sue Sheila, if you would listen to me.
I'd be happy to.
Okay. When I first got this invitation to this circle on self-empathy, I really had to think about what it was all about, because I've never really used that term.
So when you first got this invitation, you weren't familiar with the term self-empathy, and you wanted.
Yeah, and so, but the more I thought about it, and I'll just be honest with you, I'm kind of anal. So when I saw that, my initial response was, okay, I don't know what this is. Let me research it. Let me find out. So I'll have a clue of what I'm talking about.
So, in your words, being that you're anal, you had no clue about what this is about, so you wanted to prepare and research it and feel comfortable with coming here.
Yes, and then I started thinking about it, and I was like, just let it go, Linda. You don't have to know everything, and be prepared. Just as it says, self-empathy. So have a little empathy for yourself.
So thinking about, you didn't really have to do a lot of research, that you just could come and be present, that you actually experienced some self-empathy of just being okay with it.
Yes, and I think that has, for me, has come with age, because of the way I grew up and what I was told. I had to, me as a Black person, so I'll say I had to always be better than, and and so I have this. I think it's a natural type A personality, so I always want to do better than. And with age, I've learned that, and since I'm not in corporate America anymore, I can let that go.
Yeah, so you realize that it's you grew up with a not just being Black, but being a type A personality, that you really felt like you had to be better than do more and learn more,
Yeah.
and with age and not being in corporate America, you're ready to let that go. And
Yes, and life is a lot easier. My stress level has reduced significantly.
yeah, and just realizing or practicing this self-empathy, your stress level is way down and life is easier.
Yeah. So for me, self-empathy is just forgiving yourself, realizing that you can't know everything, control everything, and be everything. Just forgive yourself and just let yourself experience life.
So you would describe self-empathy as self-forgiveness and just allow yourself to experience life without all the judgments and the
Yeah, yeah.
self-doubt.
And excuse me, there are times that I do the self-talk, and I'm critical of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and I'm thinking I should, maybe I should tweak this, do it better. And when I find myself doing that, when I realize that when I find myself doing it, become conscious of the fact that I'm doing it, then I say, does it matter? And I let
So
it
you
go.
do still experience self-talk, and when that critical voices come up, you kind of can catch yourself now and then say, does it really matter?
Yeah. Um, Somebody told me this years ago. If 100 years from now, what you're stressing over, if it's not going to matter, then it's not worth stressing over now.
Yeah, so you really appreciated somebody telling you if it's if 100 years from now it's not going to be important, it's not important for you to worry about now.
Yes, and I've shortened that time span to tomorrow.
Excuse me, I didn't catch that
I,
last
I
part.
said I've shortened that time span from 100 years to tomorrow.
And you shortened the time span from 100 years to tomorrow.
Yes. So I find that when you give yourself forgiveness, when you excuse yourself for not measuring up to, for me, um, not measuring up to what I think I should be, then again, my stress level is down, and I learn to accept that I have limitations. I can't do everything, and I can't do everything perfectly. So that's okay.
And when you realize that your 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 self-doubts or your judgments come in, you begin to uh oops, my battery's running low. If I go away, I forgot to plug in my computer.
Okay. But I
Um,
realized I
yeah,
can just let it go. It's
you
not,
can
I
you
can
now
forgive
have the
myself and let it go.
you have the ability now to forgive yourself and let it go.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
Yeah.
you. I'm gonna plug in my computer. Hold on.
Yeah, Priyanka just said she had had a call from work, so
Okay,
I'm keeping time now. I got the clock here.
okay.
So you feel fully heard and
Yes,
I'm okay,
yes,
thank you.
yes.
Okay, Edwin, would you listen
Yep,
for me?
listening. Mhm.
Okay, I think the original question is my definition of self-compassion.
Self-empathy. Mhm.
No, self-empathy. Okay. All right. So in regards to the circle, well, first I'll say a little bit about self-empathy. Uh, I thought about this from last week, and it's kind of like developing or balancing like a second muscle.
So you see self-empathy is like developing a second muscle.
Yeah. So like in a circle, I'm trying to focus and pay attention to what the other person is saying, but at the same time, like have some awareness of what I'm feeling or what my needs are so that I can make sure I don't get in the way of listening.
So for you, it's the second muscle. The first muscle is maybe listening to someone else. The second one is listening to yourself. And the reason to listen to yourself is so that stuff doesn't get in the way of your listening to others.
Yeah, but then there's a little bit of a problem there because if I start overthinking about self-empathy, then I get flustered and I can't retain what somebody else has said.
Yeah, so you're seeing a problem that if you're really starting to focus on yourself, you know what's going on in yourself, then you forget or you can't remember what the other person said. So there's some kind of a little dilemma or problem there.
Yeah, so I don't know how to resolve that one yet.
Yeah, I don't know how to resolve that one yet. So
Yeah, so I think that I really appreciated what Dwayne shared about, using self-empathy before coming in so that I just see if I have anything coming up or needs to be met, and I could do that before the circle.
and you're appreciating what Dwayne's saying, that even before you come to the circle, you can sort of do that check-in. Instead of doing it in the circle, you do it sort of prepare yourself beforehand.
Yeah, and then as long as I'm paying attention to the other person, it kind of runs very smoothly that I can listen and hear and participate more calmly.
Yeah, and if you do that, you can just focus on the other person, and that everything just runs more smoothly if you can just put your attention or focus on the other person.
Yeah. How's my time? Because I feel heard.
2 minutes or
Oh, 2 minutes, and I got 1 more minute?
you got
Okay.
2 more minutes.
2 more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let
You're
me
at 3.
have some reflection here,
Okay.
because, okay, yeah, so when I do get, when my attention goes to, am I, can I do this? If I start to question whether I could do this, then, I notice that I do start, like, my ears start to shut off, or something happens in my brain where I can't remember what, like, the previous comment was.
Mm. Yeah, so you question yourself, hey, can I do this? But and when you have that question of can I do it, you kind of shut down sort of the previous question or comment. Sounds like in terms of reflection when somebody's speaking to you.
Yeah, so I guess it is kind of like a self-doubting thing that comes up. And so, if now that I kind of see that it's a self-doubt or something, maybe I could just do a trigger thing of, whatever those things are where you just like let it go real quick. I can maybe make it go away quicker. So, it doesn't get in the way.
Yeah, you're saying that if you have some self-doubt, it actually blocks you from listening to others. And if there's a way that you can just drop that self-doubt, that would kind of help.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's almost like I'm getting in the way of my own, um, empathic listening.
So that self-doubt kind of gets in the way of your own process of listening. And that's the time to
Thank
5
you. I
minutes.
feel heard.
Okay. Are you back, Priyanka? Are you able to listen? I'll speak
Yes.
to you then.
Yes, go ahead, Edwin.
Yeah, in terms of self-empathy, I think it's the same as empathizing with others. There's the quality of sensing into someone else's experience, trying to see, be present, be aware of what their feelings are, maybe the needs behind those feelings, the kind of the ongoing flow of feelings that other people have. And that's the same for self-empathy. It's just doing that for oneself, that sensing into the ongoing flow of feelings and thoughts that are sort of arising.
Yeah, so according to you, self-empathy is the same as empathy that you give to others, which is sensing into the flow of life that is going on in them. And in self-empathy, you just go the other way around and you do that on yourself. You just sense into yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm seeing, defining empathy as a way of being. So a lot of times empathy is just, hey, it's just technique, or it's sort of this process, or it's this feeling. But I see empathy as like a way of being as a human being, that we have empathy for others and empathy for ourselves. And there's what a way of being is sort of a question, how to really describe that. But I think everybody knows it, like it's a whole personality, a whole sense of self and sort of our values. And that's kind of how I see empathy, is that larger way of being. It's like a philosophy of life almost.
Yeah, so you see, empathy is a larger way of being, and it's almost like a philosophy of life, how you should be, how you should react to the people around you, etc.
And we're starting with the work of Carl Rogers, and somebody here, I think Diane's talking about NVC, and Marshall Rosenberg, who started NVC, was a student of Carl Rogers. So he started on the active listening, empathic listening. So we all have sort of that foundational starting point. And NVC does talk about self-empathy, and I just wanted to kind of give that context.
Yeah, you just want to give the context that NVC and also these circles, they have the same starting point, which is Carl Rogers' work.
And with NVC, it's like each of these sort of branches is kind of focusing on some little aspect of that way of being. They kind of focus in, and NVC focuses on, it says, look for the feeling, name the feeling, like, I'm feeling excited, and then you look at what is the feeling, what is the need, or what are the feelings that you desire. Instead, you can use, feelings you desire, or desires, or needs. There's kind of different words for it. I think that, some feelings point to other feelings that we desire. So I feel excited because my need for personal growth, like I feel, hey, we're really growing here, we're exploring here, and I really enjoy that environment of growth. So I kind of sense into that feeling inside myself.
Yeah, so empathy has all these little this way of being. It has all these little branches that explain this way of being, and it's also like a way of exploring your, like, for example, here you're exploring personal development, and so you look into yourself and you say, hey, I'm growing, and you're excited about that.
And there's another branch off of Roger's work, which was by Genlin in a process called focusing. And focusing it was Genlin said, oh, in therapy, there's people who are moving, growing in therapy, by being listened to. And there are people who are not really moving, they're not growing. And he did a study of why they grow and don't grow. And what he found was that the people who spoke from a felt experience, they named a feeling, and then they stayed with that feeling and talked about how it was changing in themselves, so that they were the ones that grew. So I think that that's really an essence, another essence of another branch of how to do self-empathy, that sensing into one's own feelings.
Yeah, so there's this other guy called Genlin, which is another branch of this self-empathy, where he found that those people who were growing in therapy were the ones that could sense into themselves and understand how that flow of that feeling is changing.
Yeah, and that's my time. Feel fully heard.
Yeah. Thank you, Edwin. Diane, would you be willing to listen to me?
My pleasure.
Thank you. So, I mean, when it comes to sensing into yourself, which is a very important aspect of self-empathy, I think, and it is reiterated not just in Genlin's work or by Carl Rogers, but also in a lot of spiritual traditions. Meditation is all about, at least I practice Vipassana meditation. I've been doing it for 10 years, not as regular as I would like, but kind of now and then. It's this, the concept is the same, which is looking into yourself.
So what I hear you saying is that the concept of looking into yourself or sensing into yourself not only exists through these teachers that Edwin named, but also you've experienced it through doing meditation that you've done for 10 years. So it's, and other spiritual traditions also focus on bringing our attention to ourselves.
And so it, for me, at least the way I think about it is, it takes on this kind of truth that transcends religion, transcends culture, transcends all sorts of even like philosophical boundaries, because every tradition and every practice kind of teaches a similar thing, which is like, I'll build a framework for it, which is looking into yourself. And the way they do it are different, but the underlying framework is look into yourself and be aware of what's happening without judgment, without try to do it without any reaction, without taking action on it, but just to try and be aware of what is happening.
So, so it sounds like what you're saying is that this idea of getting in touch with oneself, looking into oneself, is getting to some essential truth within yourself that that is shared by a lot of different traditions. And what it's aiming to do is to increase your self-knowledge without having to judge it, without having to act on it, and just building your awareness about yourself. And that is some very that essential truth is something that transcends all other boundaries of different philosophies and ideas. Is that it?
Yeah. And because it's simple, right? It's simple. It's a simple thing to do. Look into yourself, just be aware what's happening, but it is so hard. Because right now I'm going through some painful emotions, let's say. The last thing I want to do is sit with them, right? That's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to sit with my shame. I don't want to sit with my embarrassment. I don't want to sit with my grief over something, heartbreak. I want to go out and eat an ice cream, or I want to go out and talk to my friend and gossip about my neighbor, but I don't want to look into my shame.
Mm-hmm. So while the concept seems easy, actually putting it into practice can be really challenging because it brings up emotions that you'd rather not look at. Shame, guilt, and you rather focus on enjoyable things for yourself, which might be go getting an ice cream or gossiping with your neighbors. So it's hard to sit with maybe those emotions that are riling within you.
And this is like the tragedy, because doing exactly that is what will help me come out of the pain. So it's so ironic that I don't want to do that one thing that will actually bring me out of the pain.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of ironic that even though you'd like to get yourself out of the pain, you don't necessarily want to sit with the pain, but actually that's the thing that would get you through it. You have to live through it to get through it.
Yeah. Thank you. My time's up.
Okay, thank you. So do you want us to keep on this question of the definition, or do you want us to talk about something else? I think we're ready for the second round. Or
yeah. So
what do you
the
want?
second question is, thank you for that reminder, Diane. The second question is, what does self-empathy mean to you in the context of the circle? So I want you to think about your own personal definition of self-empathy and ground it to the practice that we're doing in the circle.
Okay.
I have a, excuse me if I may, a comment. As a facilitator, I think it's really important for me to remember when I'm reflecting, when I'm speaking, to pause and to be aware that the person who's reflecting back, it's helpful to them if I speak in, shorter sentences and remember to take that break before, so that they can have a better opportunity of reflecting back. So
thank you, Dwayne. I have a tendency to ramble on. Thank you for that reminder.
Oh, it's for all of us. Thank you.
Okay. Sushila, would you be willing to listen to me?
Yes, I would.
Thanks. I guess I wanted to I want to talk about what you asked, but I also want to talk about, I was very intrigued by, that Edwin saying empathy as a way of being. And I was thinking that babies are innately empathic. Like if you put all these little babies in a circle together and they see someone crying, they start to cry, or they crawl over to comfort another baby, that there's something in us as infants that is innately empathic.
Yeah, so you were reflecting on what I said and what Edwin said, and it's about a way of being. And then you started thinking about babies and how babies put in a circle will have that natural tendency to empathize with each other and maybe cry or go comfort or there's just something in us that has that natural ability to show empathy.
Yeah, so I think then, as we move through this, our socialization system, it sort of gets beat out of us.
Yeah, and as we grow older and then the socialization, it gets beaten out of us.
Yeah. So thanks. Had something else here, but now I can't make out what I was going to say. Okay, so in terms of the circle, I think I really connect with what Dwayne was sharing about doing, pre-circle prep, to just bring yourself into the circle, whether you're facilitating or not, with as much openness and calm as you can muster.
Yeah, and you were reminded by Dwayne about getting ready for the circle and coming into the circle with as much presence and that to be present and available for the circle.
Yeah. And then, when I think the circle, my experience with the circle is it's often not very controversial. So maybe the need for self-empathy doesn't necessarily, at least in the training, maybe the need for self-empathy didn't get triggered so much.
So as far as your experience in the trainings, the trigger of you didn't feel like you were triggered in many ways, so self-empathy wasn't really didn't come up for you. The need for self-empathy didn't come up.
And maybe where it would have gotten stimulated would be in when we got feedback, and then to accept your imperfectness as a catalyst to growth.
So maybe you did notice that maybe in the feedback session there was maybe a little bit of trigger, and that there would be some kind of I don't know if you said compassion. Maybe you can repeat that last
Yeah,
part
sure. It
about
would be like it can be helpful to see the feedback as a catalyst to growth.
Yeah, and as far as like if you were to look at how to use self-compassion, you could see the feedback as a catalyst for growth.
Right. And when you were talking, Sushila, about how do you use self-compassion within a circle when you're really trying to listen to somebody, I was thinking about how sometimes these little tricks, that you like a skill that you develop, like when you feel a trigger, you say, "Oh, I'm being triggered." Just even saying that to yourself can let you let go of it and just keep focusing.
And so you were reflecting on what I was saying about listening to yourself and it kind of getting in the way, that even you have little tricks and tips of like even thinking about, oh, that's a trigger, then that could like stop the trigger. Just naming it could get you back to presencing.
Yeah. So I guess in this circle, I also really was taken with Edwin's model of how to do the parts, how you could use the circle to work out some of your blocks, maybe self-empathy blocks, using the parts.
And you were thinking about Edwin's example of using the different people who work out the different blocks could be helpful, or did I
Yeah,
miss
using
something?
that he broke it down into using the different parts of the block to work it out. Yep. Thanks very much. I appreciate your listening to
Welcome.
me.
Oh, how about Linda? Would you listen to me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Well, I noticed that I think I already answered question 2 and question 1. Oh well. I can develop this a little further, I suppose.
Okay. Yes, you feel like you've already answered question 1 and question 2 previously, so now you can just delve a little further, a little deeper.
Yeah. So what do I want to share? I'm not a good improviser, so I need some time to think more. Maybe you can repeat and I'll think more.
Okay, so you don't think you're a good, you don't consider yourself a good improviser, so you need to think a little bit more, contemplate what you're going to say
Mm,
or what you're feeling.
yeah. So the context of self-empathy in a circle, I guess I tend to think about training other people or talking about how to introduce this to other people as well.
So in terms of that second question, you're thinking about empathy in the circle is how to introduce this to other people as well.
Yeah, and the question of, okay, so there's an example of like when people are listening, especially to like Diane said, the training wasn't so triggering, but in a conversation that I do on, political topics or topics that bring up triggers, to have somebody or even myself watch when those feelings are starting to erupt of, oh my God, or something that's like scary, or what
Mhm.
are we going to do about holding the circle together. um, there's a point of continuing to listen, but also having to deal with what's erupting.
Okay, so you have conversations or circles, if you will, involving politics, and you're referencing back to something Diane said about triggers. So in those conversations, when someone says something and you recognize it's triggering in the group, then you're trying to do two things: listen and also figure out how to, keep the circle going.
And also making sure that I'm not having, a judgmental face or,
Okay.
falling apart in some other way.
So making sure that you're not reacting physically or they can see the reaction mentally or physically, that it doesn't show
So,
on your face.
and so I'm just listening to my own self empathy right now, and it's like, how do I, like there is a certain kind of non-judgmental face, but then like when I genuinely feel like the humor or the pain of somebody, um, it doesn't feel real for me not to have that face. So I also don't know how to deal with that part.
Okay, so you recognize the importance of having a non-judgmental face, but when people are having pain or joy, it's hard for you not for it to show that it's resonating in you and not for it to show on your face.
Yeah.
Hmm, hmm. Non-judgmental. Okay.
Yeah. So that's something I'd like to learn more about.
And that's something you would like to learn more about. How not to let it show on your face.
Or let it show.
Or let it
Which
show.
one? Or is
Yes.
it just, is it just come out what it's supposed to come out? I don't know.
Yeah. Or just let it show. Should it just come out? Should it just be natural or should you hold it in? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I feel heard. I don't know how I'm doing on time.
Very good.
Thank you very much, Linda.
Okay, if you would pronounce your name again for me.
Sushila.
Shushila. Thank you, Sushila. You know, you mentioned that, and I was just thinking about, you know, what we've talked about, safe space, the circles being a safe space. And when it's all neutral conversation, it's easy for it to be a safe space, and it's easy for you to have self-empathy and empathy for the other person in the circle. But when you, and I think it was you, Sheila, that talked about you involved in politics. So I wonder how this self-empathy works when you're in a circle and discussions are going on that that are political, and you have different spectrums of political ideologies in the circle.
Just a question, are you speaking back to Sushila now?
Oh, you know what, I'm sorry. Dwayne. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, so let me start over. Sushila was talking about the emotions and whether you should show them or hold them in. And I'm thinking about this self-empathy that we're talking about and how it works in a safe environment when the conversation is neutral.
Okay. Linda, you were reflecting back on what Sheila shared earlier about being in a political, you know, being in a circle where you're talking about political issues and stuff, and then distinguishing that from being in conversations that are neutral or a neutral environment, and whether or not, in terms of self-empathy, whether or not it's okay to reflect what you're feeling at the time.
Yeah.
To honestly, excuse me, reflect what you're feeling.
Yeah, but that's it. That's the gist of it. I'm wondering if we're in a circle and the political ideologies are from one extreme to the other. And in the circle, it's supposed to be a safe space, and it's not non-judgmental, and we self-reflected and self-aware and all like that. And people say things that you don't agree with. How do you have self-empathy at that point?
So, Linda, you're also speaking to the challenges of being in a circle where there may be extreme ideologies, and the person speaking ideology is very different from your own. And then how do we maintain self-empathy in that moment?
Yes, because like Sushila, I don't have a poker face. And as a mediator, I have to remain neutral. So I have to be conscious of my body language when I'm interacting with the parties, not to show the expressions on my face, not to fold my arms, you know, which can be a negative, and, you know, not to nod one way or the other. I have to remain neutral. So it is a conscious effort for me to not be judgmental to them or to myself. Because sometimes, especially in family mediations, people can say things or, you know, demand certain things from the other party that I don't think are realistic or quote unquote fair. But as a mediator, I have to remain neutral, non-judgmental, and be aware of the fact that's how I feel. That's not how they feel.
That's a lot.
Oh, I'm
My
sorry.
best to reflect back.
Okay.
Like Sheila, you feel that you don't see yourself as having a poker face. And so professionally, as a mediator, it's really important that you give the appearance of being, not only be not non-judgmental, but give the appearance of non-judgmental. And
Yeah.
your body language is really important. You know, you can't sit up there and cross your arms if somebody says something, or
Yeah.
react to what's being shared. And
Right.
so that creates, a tremendous challenge. And so awareness is important.
Yes.
Being aware yourself and how you're experiencing and being in the process.
Exactly. Exactly. You got it. You got it. Thank you, Dwayne.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate the challenge. Um, let's see, who hasn't spoken for a while? Edwin, would you like to be my listener?
Listening.
As usual, during this process, there's this whole awareness thing
Yeah.
that goes on with me.
So you're saying that within this process, there's this awareness going on with you, as usual, sort of a.
It's really important for me to be mindful and to be present and be aware of all the different things going on in my brain.
Yeah, it's important for you to be mindful and present, and then also be aware of what's going on in your, all the things that are going on in your brain.
And there's so many things that are going on in my brain. And especially being aware if I'm judging or projecting, and to immediately silence that voice.
Yeah, so you find it's important that if something comes up that's a judgment, that you want to silence that voice. Sounds like when you're listening to someone else, you want to silence those judgments that are coming up.
Yes. However, it's also important too to distinguish between making observations and being curious about what someone is saying.
And you want to differentiate between being curious about what someone else is saying, and then this quality of curiosity, and then the compared to sort of adding to what they're saying, or I'm not quite.
Well, I use the word observation.
Observation.
Being aware, observing what's going on. And so when I think of self-empathy as it relates to the empathy circle, it's having an awareness and being present, it gives me a greater capacity of empathizing with the person who's speaking.
So within the empathy circle, if you're aware and present with the other person, it supports you in empathizing with them.
Yeah, it's not a perfect process for me. It's always a learning process. And that's why being aware is so important.
Yeah, it's a learning process, and that's why just being aware is important for that learning.
And one of the challenges for me is the way we use language, the way I use language, the way people use language.
And a challenge is just the way people use language, the way you use it and other people use language. There's a challenge in there.
Yeah, because how I use language to communicate is a choice that I make. How I think and speak about life is a choice that I make, I believe.
So you're making a choice, the way you're expressing yourself, the words you're using, what you're identifying. There's some kind of a choice in there that you're making.
Yeah. And so when a person chooses to use words regularly my understanding is what we use regularly becomes an affirmation.
So if we're using the same words regularly on an ongoing basis, that's some sort of an affirmation.
Yeah, there's a affirming that takes place. Quite often we think about positive affirmations,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also unhealthy affirmations. And so that's the challenging part for me.
So the challenging part is there can be things that come up that you just keep reaffirming, and they could be negative, maybe like a judgment or something, and that's a challenge for you, is those things that come up.
Yeah, because I've been on a journey for a long time, many, many years now, of having awareness of how I use language and making an effort not to speak to think and speak in a way that's unhealthy or that could be considered negative.
Hmm. Yeah, so you've been going on this journey, and you're really looking at how, when you speak, that you can speak in a way that's not negative or considered negative. And
Yeah, my time is up. I mean, in summary, everything's a construct. Our brain doesn't know what's real or what's not real. And so what I choose to believe is how I experience life.
Mm-hmm. So everything in life is a construct, and so the way we have this construct of what we believe is sort of maybe this filter of how we experience life.
Yeah, and so in conclusion, the challenging part to me is, why would I choose to communicate about my life in an unhealthy way?
Yeah, so you're kind of asking, why would someone or yourself want to communicate in an unhealthy way? It sounds like, and the reverse is you want to communicate in a healthy way.
Yes, thank you, Edwin. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Okay, Priyanka, can I speak
Yes,
to
go
you?
ahead.
Yeah, the empathy, self-empathy in the empathy circle. I would say it's the speaker has a chance to express themselves. And so the focus of everyone is on me right now. And so this is an opportunity for me to sense into what's going on inside myself. So I see that the circle is supporting me in my self-empathy right now.
Yeah, so the speaker, when they're speaking, everyone's attention is on them. And so they're expressing themselves and receiving attention. And that is also a form of self-empathy in the circle.
And it's supportive for self-empathy. I've told the story before, but I remember listening to someone. We're just at a cafe, and I said, "I'll just listen to you." And I did reflection, and afterwards they said, "I've never felt so deeply heard and so creative." It was somehow by me just listening, not adding my own stuff and so forth, that he just felt like, wow, it's like I feel so creative because they're able to go into themselves and reveal something new that they usually didn't get to reveal.
Yeah, so you did this empathic exchange with someone at a cafe, and afterwards they said that they'd never felt so creative because all you did was just reflect back without adding anything of your own.
And so it seems like there's maybe different levels of self-empathy. There's, as the speaker here in the circle, they get all the attention. They don't have to struggle for being heard. They don't have to worry about necessarily being judged and all the other things that might, kind of constrict the speaker. And it's a space to sort of maybe metaphorically to bloom, right? It's kind of open up and allow whatever's inside to bloom.
Yeah, so it's a space where whatever is inside can bloom because it's so easily done. There's nobody, you don't have to fight for attention, and everybody's attention is on you when you're speaking.
And I imagine not just imagine, but everyone else in the circle too can know that, hey, there'll be a time when I can speak and I can be heard. So that kind of reduces some tension. And I think like even while I'm speaking now, I'm sure everyone's sensing into their own experience too. And so there's there's sort of self-empathy that everyone it has.
Yeah, so there's a sense of self-empathy that everyone has because they know that they can, when it's their turn, they can also express themselves.
And I think there's a lot of different things we could do to deepen that self-empathy. There's a lot of techniques we could do to add to the empathy circle to make the self-empathy even, richer experience.
Yeah, there are a lot of techniques that we can add to the circle to make it a even richer experience because there are more levels that you can go to.
And Linda was talking about mediation. So in mediation, you sometimes you're going into a tough situation. It's going to be brutal, and it's like, oh my God, I feel nervous and tense about this. And that's why we have the empathy buddy, is that you can connect with someone else before you go into the circle and just say, I need half an hour or an hour just to share all my stress and worries and so forth. And when somebody listens to you, it's like you're sensing into yourself, you're sharing the feelings and the stresses and the anxiety, and someone else hearing it, I find I just get more relaxed, calmer. And then when I go into a mediation, I have sort of more space to mediate.
Yeah, so when you're going into a mediation space where it's going to be tough, you can go ask for empathy and just be heard. And that will help with the self-empathy.
Yeah, and so that's that empathy buddy part. And I also wanted to add that in the empathy circle doesn't exclude judgments. That it's when your turn to speak, you're free to say whatever is arising. So if my judgment is arising, I am free to share my authenticity of whatever arises. But that judgment will be met with empathy, right? Instead of it being a trigger necessarily, ideally the other person just empathizes with that judgment, which starts transforming the judgment.
Yeah, so it's not like you're not allowed to have judgments. You can present your authentic self when you're speaking. If judgments are what is coming up, you can express them when it's your turn. And but that will not be received by normally something else, but with empathy.
Yeah, I feel fully heard.
Yeah. Edwin, I'd like to speak back to you. Is that okay?
Yep, listening.
So it's very interesting what you shared about self-empathy in the circle, because there's this relaxation that I'll be heard, so I don't have to fight to get attention like in a normal conversation. Sometimes we do that.
So you found it interesting that I was saying, and you're maybe identifying with that feeling of you don't have to fight to be heard in the circle.
So in a sense, it's very soothing because there's this one part of me that's always fighting for attention and things, that part can be calm, so I can listen to others better.
Yeah, so there's a calming aspect because you don't have to fight for attention. Because of that, you're calmer, and that's actually supporting you, helps you to listen to others better.
It's very strange because the idea just came to me when you mentioned it, that the structure of the circle itself supports self-empathy. Like the structure, I never really thought about it, but the structure supports self-empathy because the structure ensures that I'll have a chance to speak and express myself.
Yes, so you see that it sounds like you're even excited about it, seeing you had this insight that the structure of the empathy circle supports your self-empathy because you're not having to compete for being heard.
Yeah, this is really exciting because it's another dimension that I never thought about. I thought about me giving myself empathy, me receiving, getting self-empathy by being heard from others. That's an aspect, but I never thought about the structure itself.
Yeah, so this is like a third dimension that you just seem to have discovered. One is giving yourself self-empathy, other people empathizing with you, and there's also that structures can support self-empathy, and you see the structure of the empathy circle supporting that self-empathy.
And another thing about the structure of the circle is that I think I want to talk about the time. Like we are restricted to 5 minutes or 4 minutes or whatever it is. So I have to be very efficient with my words. And maybe I have to be very effective also when I'm speaking, because if I want to be heard fully, I have to do it in a very efficient way. So maybe that helps me also to be more articulate.
So another part of the structure is there's a time limit. And because there's a time limit, you have to be more articulate and more concise with what you're saying.
So what I do, at least I do this, I don't know about anybody else, but what I do in my brain is there are like so many things, like it's like, I imagine like I'm in a forest and I can take so many paths, but then because I'm restricted by the time, and there's this part of me that wants attention so much, so I'm like, I pick like the one that is the need that is the most present. So I go down that path where it's the most important.
Yeah, so you notice it in the circle, it's like it being in a forest. You go in so many different paths, so many different directions. So since you have limited time, you choose the one that's kind of the most energetic, most alive for you.
And I think that also serves self-empathy, because it's like I see like our life, maybe my inner life as a maybe like a pyramid. So like I demolish the first ones, and then I can go down, and then I can do till I get what I call grounded. So by demolishing the highest, most neediest thing first out of the way, I can progress to that state of groundedness.
So you're seeing that there's sort of maybe a hierarchy of what you have energy for or is salient for you. And by taking the top, the most energetic, and then sort of working your way down through those energies, that you come to a more sense of groundedness.
Yeah, and I have an example of this. I remember being so irritated for some small thing this morning. Like I had a meeting that I didn't take down. I was so irritated. It's not something to be so irritated about, but that was the most present thing in me at that moment. And I demolished that first through self-empathy. And then I realized, oh, I'm really irritated because my life is so unpredictable and chaotic at the moment. And the actual thing was I was irritated about not having written down that schedule, but it was not that. It led to that actual much deeper thing.
Yeah, so there was, yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
you were feeling really irritated about not having done something, and then you sort of sensed into that feeling. You saw there was something deeper than that, and so you just kind of connected to that deeper sense, and that was through going to what had the highest salience or energy. Then you kind of worked your way down.
Yeah, I'll just finish. Like this small thing was so small, like anybody would have said, why are you working yourself about this stupid thing? But it was actually like that top which I had to demolish to get to the grounded.
Yeah, so there was something that you had to address it. You had to be present with it for that to move through to get to the next layer, maybe. You saying demolish it, but you had to kind of get rid of it in some way.
Yes. Thank you, Edwin.
Okay. Who hasn't listened in this round? Somebody who's Diane, then I'll speak to you, Diane.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see, what do yeah, I'm not really sure what to say here. Kind of hit a block.
Yeah, it sounds like you're hit a block right now. You're not really sure what you want to share.
And that's the aspect of the empathy circle, is just to say whatever is alive in the moment, right? Oh, I'm feeling a block. I'm kind of having this space where nothing's arising in me. So to be able to name that and share it, and for it to be heard, I think is what I'm trying to do more of.
Mm-hmm. So one of the gifts of the empathy circle is to allow you to express, what's alive for you wherever you are. If you're at a block, to just be able to say it and have it reflected back and have it heard, and to be comfortable with that.
Yeah, and It's like the aspect of anxiety or something. If I'm feeling some anxiety, you know, if I can express that, that kind of lets it go. Yeah. So there's something about expressing feelings that lets them go, right? And once they get expressed and they're let go, it's like there's always something new that arises. Like it's almost like, I think of it almost like a spring, right? There's always this water coming out of this spring. You don't know where all that water is coming from, but it's just this constant sort of unfolding.
Mhm. So it sounds like you can see that you don't, in order to work through your feelings, just even expressing them can allow them to transmute or to leave. But there's always a wellspring of more things coming up in your life that you can address, sort of like a spring that's constantly feeding.
Yeah, it's a spring of felt experience, right? There's
Mhm.
feelings that are, I'd like to get even better at naming the feelings. There's so many feelings coming up in me that I don't even have words for. You know, it's like I have trouble, like I sense it, I feel it, but I don't have a clear word to describe it.
Mhm. So it sounds like you would like to develop your vocabulary about having more access to words that could really accurately describe what you're feeling, because you're aware that you're having a lot of feelings that you don't have yet words to put to them.
Yeah, and so if I look into my body, it feels like a 360-degree space of felt experience. And like I feel sort of this spaciousness, you know, by being here in the circle, it feels like a calm spaciousness is one feeling I have.
Mhm. So you're really connecting to your felt experience, and one of them is in being in the circle, a real sense of spaciousness, like a 360-degree spaciousness for you to be moving
Yeah,
in the
and then there's
circle.
another feeling that, oh, I need to go to the restroom. It's like I'm feeling sort of this pressure of, oh, I need to go to the restroom. So I'm feeling that in my body space too. So
So you're aware of other natural urges that are coming up and reminding you of things that maybe you need to do.
and
Take care of
another part,
yourself.
yeah, exactly. And another part is, you know, to do all this organization stuff takes a lot of organizing and constriction. And I feel that constriction sort of in my head, like, oh, there's a lot of different things to juggle, a lot of things to write, a lot of things to organize. And it has a little bit of a stressful, you know, constricted feeling kind of in, you know, in this part of my body.
So when you start to consider all the things that you have to do to go into making the circle and we're keeping all the facts straight, you get a sense of constriction in your head around it. And sort of it feels a little stressful to you.
Yeah. So, but I'm feeling all those things at the same time. And I think that's what self-empathy is sort of sensing into all those bodily experiences and being aware of them and just seeing how they move and, you know, and change. And there's something about, there's subtle feelings that if I express them like an idea, that's sort of how action kind of happens. Like it's a vague little idea. I stay with it and it grows and it turns into a whole project, like eventually. So there's sort of that quality too.
So I think what you're feeling a sense of awareness about is that just being in a sensory place, like really sensing your experience, it has many, many different components sort of happening at once. But also it sort of percolates ideas that then get evolved into like projects that you might be interested in working on to carry those ideas further.
And one of those things that's growing is I'm going to go take a bio break.
Okay.
And so with that, I feel fully heard. I'll be right back.
Can I
think
make a
it's-
suggestion? Can we all take a like a two?
Isn't it? It
Yeah.
was a 1.5-hour circle. So the time is up, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, the time is up.
Yes.
12:30, I think we committed to be here.
Okay.
Would you
So-
like to take just 5 minutes to wrap it up? And Edwin can see the recording later because we have another circle also starting in a few minutes. Just to check out how was it for you? What did you learn? Did your definition of self-empathy change? Just a quick 30-second checkout. Anybody that likes to start can start and nominate another person to continue.
I'll start. This has been very interesting. I've been able, and labels don't work or shouldn't work, but I've been able to identify what I've been doing. We call it self-awareness or whatever, or checking in with yourself and not being judgmental. And somebody mentioned needs, to make sure your needs are being met. And that has really resonated with me, because I've tried to enter into conversations with people with opposing views, political views, just to see, to hear and understand where they're coming from, but they end up with the name calling and all the, alternative facts. And I leave the group because my needs are not being met. So that's my self-awareness. Great discussion.
Linda, would you like to nominate someone?
Diane.
Thanks. I appreciate being in the group. I didn't have the pleasure of being with Linda in the training, so I'm so happy that we got to be in the circle today. Yeah, I feel like I feel like I got a lot to chew on from everything that people shared, and to me, there's I guess I'm thinking there's a little more complexity in this. Often when I'm in a group, not often, but at times when I'm in a group, sometimes there's like what they call a care system, whereby if you get like really, really triggered, you can go into a breakout room with somebody else and then get a lot of empathy and be able to come back into the room, which is something that I was sort of my thinking is on that is from what Linda was saying about, very tense discussions where there's name calling or things that are difficult to bear. Like to help you not leave completely, but to figure out how to get back. But sometimes you need a little extra. Your self-empathy can only work so far. Maybe you need a little extra help. So it would be interesting to see how in a circle where you don't have that, how that would exactly work. So yeah, but I think this is a rich topic and could be talked about a lot more. And it was just very nice being with all of you. Thanks. Sushila?
Yeah, I really
Okay.
appreciate it today. I learned last week about how to share or apply the self-empathy during the circle. And this time I felt like I was more aware of sharing that, not just feeling it and sharing it. So it really deepened this week. And I do want to keep learning about this. So thank you for letting me participate and hear all your different viewpoints. That was very helpful. Oh, how about Dwayne?
Thank you. I really enjoyed this experience last week, and so I came back again, and I really enjoyed this experience because even, it's again a unique experience because of the people that are here. And it's always an opportunity, really great opportunity for me to hear myself and also to learn from other people. It's interesting. I've been practicing self-empathy at the fitness center, as a 62-year-old person who uses a walker at the, I'm able to walk without it generally, but in the gym I need it because sometimes actually quite often after I exercise, my balance is different. And I've been practicing self-empathy also in terms of building a sense of community in the gym. And so my intention is to connect with people. And so I'm making eye contact and feeling energy. And it's really interesting because I've connected with some really interesting people, like couple guys in different biker gangs that I probably wouldn't usually connect with, but we've connected based on energy and presence and the intent to build community. And one of the guys, you know, this guy's real hardcore, that's a judgment, appears to be well versed in the art of being a biker. And we are building this friendship and we speak regularly, and it's really a cool thing. And so for me, self-empathy really is having awareness and being present, being aware of, you know, my intention, and being able to connect with the energy of other people because I'm present and aware. So I enjoy this experience and I look forward to the next conversation. And thank you all for being here. Yes, Biker Club. Let's see. Edwin, would you like to go next?
We're just debriefing. Is that the? Yeah, I think this is a great topic, self-empathy, and I just love to explore it, and especially if, when we start in the training, there's I just made a video which I'll send out, which is like the intro video for the course, and then we'll have one whole session on self-empathy, and then, you know, kind of go into deeper and have develop some exercises, maybe that activities that can kind of strengthen self-empathy. And I have, if there's a few minutes, I have just that self-empathy section of the slideshow that I could show. I don't know, Priyanka, do we have time for that? Or?
And don't we have the other meeting now?
We do it in about 20 minutes.
I'd like to take a break before that. So.
Oh, okay, you're gonna stay for that? Okay, then I'll skip that and I'll just send out the video. Yeah, that's fine. So is there someone else who hasn't gone, or
Priyanka.
Priyanka? Okay.
Yeah.
Choose you, Priyanka.
Yeah, I'm just very grateful for all the participation because your sharing really helps me to also understand self-empathy deeper. So I'm very grateful for you for all your authenticity and all the love that you're bringing to the table to make the world a better place. And feel free to share anything else that comes up with you in the notes section. There's which Edwin has shared in the chat. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for participating. I just feel very grateful to all of you.
And I'll be this video, I'll be posting it and transcribing it, and I'll send out the link to the slideshow, the video, as well as the recording and transcripts for this page. And so this is the last one we're doing, right? We're not doing the self-empathy one. This was so yeah, appreciate everyone taking part and you kind of working on this, Priyanka.
I've got to run, but thank you all.
Okay, that's it. Goodbye,
So great
everyone.
to see you. Bye.
And
You guys.
Edwin, I
Bye.
have a
Thank
question
you.
for you, Edwin, after.
Sure. Yeah, I'm here. Your
Is that a
question.
quick question?
Mhm.
You're still recording?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for reminding me. Let's see, where's the stop recording?